Hi, and welcome to Stories Build Businesses, the show that proves your story isn't just something you can tell, it's a strategy to build from. Here we think deeply, we care hard, and we explore how your stories and your lived experiences are the key to building a business and a brand that's uncopyable, unforgettable, and unmistakably you. I'm your host, Megan Wright, story and strategy coach and founder of Stories Build Businesses. And I'm really excited because today I'm joined by Helen Calvert. Helen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
One of the things I see you talking about a lot is building a happier life. So what I'd love to know is, what was it that inspired you to help people to create happier lives?
Well, this might just be the whole episode, my answer to this question, to be honest, Megan, because it's been a few years. So 8 or 9 years ago, I was married, 2 children. I wasn't in employed work. I hadn't been since I had my eldest child, and was doing all right. Life was lifing. I look back now and I could tell you that I wasn't happy. I wasn't even me, but we don't know that at the time, do we? And then 2017, it completely changed my life. My marriage ended. I struck out on my own. I started my own business, which was completely new, and just utterly tipped my life over and rebuilt it. And I discovered so much about how to become me, and the me that I'd left behind. I don't think I had really been me since I was about 14, to be honest. And this was when I was 37, 38. And then I started work as a virtual assistant, as a VA, then moved into coaching. And for me, it was just all about, how can we make life more fulfilling? Happy is a tricky word. It means different things to different people. But how can we get you living your best life? Because as far as I know, Megan, we've only got one. And once you've been through that kind of tornado of upending it and rebuilding it, you just want to see as many people do that as possible, because it's so hard, but it's so worth it.
I think the thing that's stuck out to me there is that it wasn't necessarily about being happier. That was almost the result. But
Yes.
what caused it was being more authentic. And I think for me, that's similar to how I support people with their businesses, because I genuinely believe that if you're being authentic in business, you're showing up as yourself and your business reflects who you are, it's so much easier. And so it's really interesting to hear that you're talking about it from the life side, that if you're being yourself, you're unapologetic, life just becomes easier.
Yeah. My values and my business values are freedom. So that was a huge one. I became free, joy, passion, adventure, and owning our own story. And those are the things that I realized were so important to me. And they were things that I had been completely ignoring. And I think that when we talk about authenticity, it's about understanding who we are, but then it's also about giving ourselves permission to be that person, because I'd certainly never been given permission to be who I have discovered I am.
And you mentioned freedom there, which I love, because escaping all of societal pressure and other people's opinions, that is a real key part of being able to live and work in a way that reflects you. But I also think freedom for a lot of people is actually quite a scary concept, that idea of kind of untethering themselves from the things that they know.
I think a lot of self-employed people don't realise how much freedom they have. They still think there are all kinds of rules that there really aren't. And the thing that I want people to free themselves from the most is the stories that live inside their own heads. And then you look at it and you think, this is just a made-up story. This isn't actually real. There are no rules, and you're right. When people realise there are no rules, it can be terrifying.
Something that's coming up for me is that we settle for good enough because we've been told that wanting more is greedy, maybe, or that wanting more is unrealistic. So I love that reframe, that actually we deserve to have the life that we want to live, to build the businesses we want to build. And the first step in that is knowing what you want. How did you go from living the kind of expected life, married with kids, to going, actually, this isn't what I want? What was that shift for you?
So often in my life, things have happened because I have felt like I've got to a point where there isn't really even a choice. It was just obvious. There was no way I could leave behind what I'd found. there was no way I was going back to not being me, not being loved the way I deserved to be loved, not being seen, all of those things. I think once we realize what we want and what we can have, then the most important thing is understanding that we have choices. What I want is to make sure everybody is consciously choosing. I don't want anyone to sleepwalk through their lives.
Do you feel that like fear is the biggest block for a lot of people that you support?
Yes, I think fear and also we're unkind to ourselves. The most important thing for me is teaching people how to be excessively kind to themselves. Because if there's one thing I've learned through everything I've been through, is we get through by being kind to ourselves. We do not get through by yelling at ourselves.
So the way I work with clients is I call it my care, connect, create. That's the framework I work with in no matter what I'm doing. It's always that is my basis. And it always starts with care. And part of that is because of my training as a CBT practitioner, that well-being is so at the core of everything I do that I couldn't turn it off even if I wanted to. But also I'm just such a believer that if you're building something that you want to last long term, and the first thing you consider is your offers or your messaging, that's not going to last. You need the foundations, and the foundations are, is it you? Does it feel right? Does it feel good? Does it align with your values? Like, that is the core of it. Because if that bit isn't in place, everything else you're building on top is shaky. You're never going to nail your messaging, nail your offers if everything that you're basing it on is all of these, like we said, these fake rules that we've been told that we need to follow.
Absolutely.
The biggest thing I've had to unlearn is that I'm allowed to talk about things I believe in. Like, I don't have to be neutral. I don't have to keep myself quiet on things that I feel strongly about. I'm still very much unlearning it, because I notice that, like, I'll go to write and I'll find myself wanting to edit it. And in the past, I've edited to the point where I'm like, well, I'm not saying anything now. I'm not neutral anymore because I'm saying something, but I'm also not saying anything because it's so watered down, because I'm so afraid of upsetting or insulting or just causing any kind of uncomfortableness for other people. But in the process, I'm uncomfortable.
Yes. And if we've come from a corporate setting, or if we're still thinking about those childhood rules, it was all about what somebody else told us we had to do. And there were consequences if we didn't do those things or if we did it wrong. Whereas when we are business owners, it's not about rules anymore.
I love what you said then. These are rules we've learned. I remember as a child, a lot of responsibility was put on me for other people's emotions. It was, don't upset somebody, don't make somebody angry, don't make someone sad. The responsibility was on us. And I think that, and unlearning that actually, if someone is upset by something I say, that is something I can reflect on to see whether or not I phrased it badly, whether I need to go away and do some of my own learning. But equally, they also hold a portion of responsibility for how they respond to me, and whether or not what I've said has upset them or triggered them because of their own stuff, where it's nothing to do with me.
Absolutely.
But that's a real learning thing, that actually I am not 100% responsible for how I am received. And I don't have to make decisions based on how I might be perceived.
When we are vulnerable, when we are able to say, actually, I experience life this way, or I have these emotions, not only is that, fabulous, but it's actually leadership. Because as soon as one of us says, I'm experiencing this, everybody else comes along and goes, me too, me as well. Yes, I've been there. But it takes one of us to do it.
It's almost like when you go to a training and there's someone who asks a question that everyone else really wanted answered, but they just didn't want to put up their hand. I'm like, be that person, be the first person, because actually when you feel safe to show that vulnerability because it's within your boundaries, do it, because that is the connection piece. I always say to people, like, when storytelling, find the things that you feel safe to talk about, but they don't have to be this polished hero's journey where it's like, oh, I was struggling, but look at me now. Like, that doesn't connect with people. People want to hear about the actual journey, because when you make it seem too easy and polished, people can't connect to it because it's unrelatable.
And it's one of the brilliant things as well, in that as a coach, you just have to be slightly further down the road than your clients. I like we've just said, I would never say, "Oh, I'm fixed. I've got all the answers. I'm sorted." But I'm just that little bit further along. So when I told people that I was experiencing autistic burnout last year, I got 3 clients from that, because 3 people came to me and said, "I think I am too." And I'm like, "Well, I'm about a week ahead of you, so let's go." Everything I've learned this week, I'll tell you, and we'll do it together. But I think that's so valuable, because you can't support from the wound. We know this. We can't turn up full in our trauma and then help other people. But you can say, look, I'm in this, but I'm learning some things, and everything I learn, I'm going to bring to you. I've learned there are things that I can do that I didn't even realize were skills, because I didn't realize other people couldn't do them.
That's such a good point, because I think for me, the biggest thing I've learned is that I have a really unusual combination of being able to do big picture thinking, where I can do that big plan, but I'm also very attention to detail orientated. So I can go, okay, this is the big plan. And then I can like laser focus to like, let's look at this minute detail of it. And that people tend to have one or the other.
Yeah.
They're either very detail orientated or they're like big picture thinking. To me, the attention to detail is big picture thinking, because it's all well and good thinking of a big, huge, great idea. But if you can't break it down and you can't look at the things that are actually going to do it, it's like saying you want to build a house, but then not knowing how to lay bricks, right? Like
Yes.
they're 2 different jobs, but if you can do both, if you can be the architect and the builder, like how much quicker is that house going to get built?
That's absolutely true. We've got this story that it has to be hard, especially if we're getting paid for it. The aim is to get the stuff done, right? We don't have to punish ourselves through it.
But I think so much of that idea that it needs to be hard and that it needs to take a long time comes from traditional jobs, where we are literally being paid to be there from 9 till 5 or whatever your hours are. So if you get the job done in 2 hours, you're stuck there for the rest of the day. And if you look like you're not busy, someone's going to find work for
There's
you.
going to be trouble. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you find yourself going, oh, well, I might as well just fill my day, and actually like switching that off and being like, it does not matter if this task takes me an hour or 2 days. All that changes, I'm not going to get paid differently. All that is going to change is I've taken 2 days to do it rather than an hour. And resetting that mindset of like, the amount of hours you work does not equate to your worth, to your value, to the amount you earn, is such a huge shift. It comes back to that rule idea, doesn't it? Like,
Yes.
if you set rules for yourself of, oh, I should be getting up every morning and doing this, I need to do this, when you don't need to, it's a rule you set, an expectation you set on yourself. You set yourself up to fail those or to fall short. And then you give yourself another stick to beat yourself with. When I was at university, and one of the lecturers, his catchphrase was fidelity with flexibility. So like, you stick to it, but you're flexible.
Yes.
And that has become almost like a life thing for me now, that actually I will have structure, I will have plans that I make so that I get things done, but I'm flexible. Like things can move around, things can be elastic, they're not set in stone. I will create a plan. It is a rough outline of what I'm going to do. And if I need to shift things around, I allow myself to do that with zero guilt. Absolutely zero, because I still know that's going to get done. So I'm just going to trust my body and believe that my instincts about myself are correct. And I think that self-knowledge and self-trust are so huge, because it's not just about trusting yourself to build a business. It's about trusting yourself to build it in a way that is right for you. Okay. So you call yourself the no bullshit coach, but I know that you're also an incredibly empathetic and kind person. So I'd love to know, how do you blend the two? How do you blend honesty with being gentle and mindful of the people that you're supporting?
I love that question. I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. And I think what happens is that I am no BS when it comes to clarity. That's where the no bullshit comes in. It's like, we're going to get super clear about what's happening. But then the gentleness comes from, okay, we can clearly see now what's happening and what we're working with. But the only way through is to be gentle with ourselves and kind and nurturing. We will never not be looking at what's happening, but we will look at it with compassion and an understanding that we're all just human.
And I think it's looking at the purpose behind things and always having that curiosity about why things are happening. What rules do they think that they need to be following? What external validations or pressures are being put on them that make them feel like they have
Absolutely.
to act or behave a certain way?
Yeah, 100%.
You've made some big you've walked through some of those challenges. How do you think that prepares you and helps you to support other clients who are perhaps thinking about taking that step or already on that journey but are feeling overwhelmed with it?
I believe we can make massive changes to our lives. What we can't do is do it alone. It's incredibly hard to do it alone, possibly impossible. We're supposed to be doing stuff with the support of other people. And anyone who's been in it knows what I mean. The only thing we need when we're in the hole is for someone to sit with us and to help us feel safe. We will figure out a way out of it and what we're going to do later. Right now we're in it, and that is okay too. And we can survive it because I've survived numerous holes and there's always a way out. So yeah, I think it is just that it's that lived experience is really valuable.
Lived experience is such a valuable thing. I think it's massively underrated in terms of when people think about their qualifications, the skills they've got. I think lived experience, very rarely do people factor it as important as the pieces of paper that they've gained. But actually, I can tell you right now, as someone who went to university a few different times for various things, I learned a hell of a lot more from life than I did from classrooms. 100%. The things that have shaped me the most as a human, as who I am, my values, the way I conduct myself just as I move through life, those weren't taught to me in a classroom. Those were things that I gained the hard way. Sometimes in a good way, but mostly the hard way. Those are the things that have genuinely made me who I am. And so to not value those or to minimize or dismiss them as not important, I think is just a massive shame, actually, because I think people overlook their stories and the fact that their stories make them who they are and their stories can make their business what it needs to be. And I think that's what's so beautiful about when you've got lived experiences, you can see the pitfalls, you can see the kind of the bumps in the road that other people can face, and you can warn them about them. Say like, look, this is a bump that you might come up against. And they can choose then what to do. Do they go over that bump? Do they go around it? Do they go down a completely different path? But if you don't know what lies ahead and you've never experienced it, you can't support people in the same way. And so for me, lived experience is a huge part of something I value and look at in people more so than qualifications. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a lovely time to chat.
I've loved it. Thank you for having me.
Something I like to do at the end of every episode is I gift them a word. And I'd love when you hear it for you to tell me how it feels to you, whether you feel like it resonates. And if it doesn't, I'd love to hear that as well. So the word that keeps popping up for me when we've been chatting is ownership. So ownership over your life, over the rules you follow, and around the business and life you're living. So many of the things we've talked about have been rooted in that real sense of taking ownership, not having it given to you, but really taking it.
Yeah, I love that. I would agree. I think that is a word I probably don't use enough, but you're right. It does sit underneath a lot of what I talk about. And we're us. We're not anybody else. And it's our life. And we have to take ownership. And it's not easy. And again, we probably can't do it alone. But if we can manage it, it opens up so many possibilities. It's fabulous.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for listening. If this episode has resonated, then I'd love you to share it with somebody who needs to hear it and let me know over on Instagram. Remember, your story matters more than you think it does, and the way you build gets to feel good. Thank you again to Helen for joining me, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.